All right, guys. So let's go ahead and watch this. You ready? Move over to this screen here. So this is today's itinerary. All right. We're going to create a basic project. We're going to get familiar with the interface. We're going to do very basic level design. We're going to have our own little level that we created. Then we're going to tackle blueprint just a little bit. We're going to do a little bit of coding today, but I don't want anyone to panic because Unreal Engine doesn't do like type code. I mean, you can, but this will be a visual scripting, which is much different. Excuse me. And then we're going to test, debug, and iterate the blueprints. Excuse me. That we will be creating today. So, if you want to get Unreal Engine, you're going to need the Epic launcher and a profile. So go ahead and create a Epic Games profile, download the launcher. And what you're going to want to do is on the left-hand side here, you're going to go to Unreal Engine. Then you're going to go over here to your library. And this is kind of where you can see the projects you're working on and your current installed versions. Hey, what's going on, Hal? I'm glad to see you here. But yeah, so if you don't have Unreal Engine, go ahead and click this little plus up here, and you'll see that it gave me another Unreal Engine little thing here. And then just change this drop down box to 511 because that's what we're going to be working with today. And you can start downloading it and follow along. Obviously, we're live right now, so if you are watching this on YouTube, you can head over to Twitch TV/Darkslayer TV. Follow me there, and we'll do some more game development streams. I do other streams, but I do plan on doing more of these as well. And since we are live, obviously I don't want to wait for everyone to download the engine. So if you're currently here and you don't have the engine yet, sorry, but get it downloaded. You can watch the VOD. It'll be on YouTube and it'll stay on Twitch for a while. So once you have 511 selected and downloaded, I did want to talk about the file sizes for a brief moment. So as you can see, Unreal Engine right now is taking up 36.7 gigs. So my recommendation is going to be to install it on a solid state drive, that like a dependable solid state drive. If you can't do that, because solid state drives are a bit more expensive, I did a hard disk drive for like a couple of years and it was fine. It's fine. But obviously the convenience of loading 36 gigs in half the time, if not quicker, beneficial. So yeah, let's go ahead and launch this bad boy. So when you press launch, you can go ahead and close the Unreal Engine, or the Unreal Epic launcher, whatever. And it'll do a little brief thing here to load up the engine. Mine will probably load a bit faster than yours because if you've already opened it once for the day, it usually sticks around in your memory. And as you can see, it loads up pretty damn fast. Can I install it on an undependable solid state drive? You can. You know, I'm not going to say you can't, but I am going to say when you're dealing with files that are meant to be permanent and they're rather large and you're on an undependable solid state drive, you could lose hours and hours and hours and hours, if not hundreds of hours of work. Wouldn't recommend it. So let's put this at the bottom so this is nice and clear and we can see what we're doing here. So what we're going to do is we are going to create a first-person example using the Unreal project browser here. So you'll see that right now my project location is on my C drive. I'm glad that that's there because I also want you to change this to somewhere way more convenient. I'm not about to put this in users bwink documents. Who the hell wants their root folder to be in bwink documents? Get out of here, Windows. Let's change this. I'm gonna move mine to just like somewhere on my solid state. In fact, I'm gonna use literally my project folder that I already have. It's okay. I'll back it up on my floppy drives. Again, go for it. If it'll let you do it in parts. You know, if you have a floppy drive that can hold that many gigabytes, I want to see it because I don't think it fits in your house. that would be a rather large floppy disk. But yeah, okay, so we chose a project location, project name. I'm just gonna name this like Twitch TV tutorial, something like that. And at the top here, we're gonna click on first person because we want to start with the first person example. On the right hand side, you'll see that we could use Blueprint or C++. Blueprint is going to be the visual scripting, which is what we're going to do. Whereas the C++ is whenever you actually code things out. They both have benefits, they both have drawbacks. However, I will say that the benefits and drawbacks have kind of gotten closer and closer and closer with the increased speed of computers and the performance increases from Unreal's side. It's kind of a preferential thing more than anything at this point. I'm going to go with Blueprint. I love Blueprint. I'm just going to leave it on desktop. Maximum qualities for me. We are going to leave starter content on. And ray tracing. Only turn this on if you know what you're doing. Ray tracing will destroy. Okay, destroy is the wrong word. I don't want you to think it's damaging your system. It's not damaging your system, but it is going to weigh heavily on your system. So do not develop a game with ray tracing on unless you know what you're doing. Because you can do it. You know, there are games out right now you can turn ray tracing on. But unless you know what you're doing, don't touch that button. You don't touch that button. Gotta eat soon enough. You do, Nat. You do, Nat. Well, if it catches fire, then I guess it destroys. That's true. It might catch on fire, to be quite frank. What's going on, Link? One more note for the people at YouTube. I'm just gonna say it one more time, at least for now. If you're here with me live in chat, you'll be able to ask questions. I love interacting with you guys. Again, Twitch TV/Darkslayer TV. But for now, let's hit that create button. And it'll take a moment because what it's going to do is it's going to copy over all the starter content. It's going to create all the base files and start connecting everything together. If it's on a solid state drive, it shouldn't take that long. If it's not on a solid state drive, again, it takes longer. It is what it is. Why do you think I made backup floppy disks? In case one catches on fire, I suppose. Of course, to be fair, if a floppy disk catches on fire, that's probably some serious heat. It's also something you probably shouldn't breathe, Hal, so remove it from the vicinity immediately and hold your breath while you're doing it. Alright, so let's look at our itinerary. We have discussed how to download it. We've discussed what version, 5.1.1. File sizes are huge. We made the first person example. So now, we're going to get familiar with the interface, okay? Because there's a lot going on in the Unreal Engine. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to navigate the viewport. So the most interesting thing on the screen right now, and the thing that everyone likes to look at compared to everything else, is the viewport. That's where we're seeing the 3D environment right in front of us, okay? But how do we navigate it? How do we use it? How do we do stuff in the world? Well, if you move your mouse over the viewport and you hold right click, you can now move your mouse and it will start to look around. Isn't that awesome? There's a sky up there. We got our little first person template down there. Now, if you hold right click, also start pressing WASD. And you'll start noticing that you can actually fly around this environment. So you can start to look around, view things, all kinds of stuff like that. If you're holding right click and you press E, you'll go up. If you press Q, you'll go down. And that's pretty much all you need to know about navigating the 3D environment for now. You can just fly around, take a look at everything, see the beautiful environment that you're going to start manipulating here soon enough. Isn't it gorgeous? Amazing. Now, the good news is you can actually click things in the 3D viewport as well. So for example, if I wanted to click on this big long piece of geometry here, all I gotta do is left click and you'll see that I've selected it. And you'll note that a tool popped up here. But I'm not gonna talk too much about the tool yet. We will soon though. But yeah, that's pretty much everything about the viewport. You can click to select things, move around, things like that. Cool beans. So now we're going to talk about the content browser. The content browser, fun fact, is actually not on screen right now, which might sound like a bad thing, but it's actually a good thing, because if it was on screen all the time, which it used to be, it limited how much space you had for the viewport. And as I said, that's the best part, is the viewport. So with Unreal Engine selected, I want you to hold in the control button and then press space. And you'll note that from the bottom up comes the content browser. So what is the content browser? Well, if you look at the top here at the address, you'll see we have all, an arrow, content, an arrow, and then we have all these folders that we can select. Essentially, the content browser starts at your root folder. The root folder is the highest folder of the entire project, and then starts displaying what's within those folders. This is where all of our assets are going to end up. Sounds, 3D models, materials, anything you can think of, code, it's all going to end up here in the content browser. So you can imagine how fast the content browser is going to fill up with absolute garbage. Well, it's going to look like garbage unless we organize it. So my very first tip when it comes to the interface, make sure when we start adding assets, and I will touch on this later, you create folder after folder after folder to make sure this is all nice and organized. Now, it does come with a little bit of experience, right? Because when you're new, you're like, okay, well, my sounds and my models kind of go together. I'll just put those in one folder. Well, yes and no. You'll soon find out that models have static meshes, potentially skeletal meshes, animations, materials, the sounds. It goes on and on and on. And you'll start to be like, oh, you know, there are more and more subfolders that I should be creating. So your first project's gonna look like mess, okay? Does Link have a question? Oh, is that what that is? Are you raising your hand?
It looks like it.
Yeah, it's like Jiggy 107. Oh, he's saluting. I see, he's saluting.
Okay.
So yeah, that's the content browser. Let's go ahead and click on some stuff. So if we go into like this first person folder here and we go into the blueprints, which let me clarify what a blueprint is really quick. A blueprint is essentially, think of, how do I put this? Think of a building blueprint. We've all seen one, like that top down look at like how a structure is laid out. Well, it's kind of that, but for game development. All the code and models and stuff go into a blueprint, and then they can do stuff and things, which we'll explain more when we get to that. But we're gonna open up the blueprints, and you're gonna see we have some stuff here. We got a first-person character blueprint, we got a rifle, we got the projectile, and just to give you an example of what the, wait, 07 Link. Oh, he's saluting. I see, 07, I get it now. But just to give you an example of what the blueprints are and what they're doing, let's open up the BP pickup rifle. So mine opened up on my side monitor. I highly recommend developing games with a side monitor, by the way, because if you try to open up all this stuff on one monitor while you're like also editing other stuff, it is a pain. If it's in your budget and it's a possibility, if you're gonna get into game development, multiple monitors. Anyway, so you'll see that immediately you're given this. And if you've never opened this before, this is terrifying. What the hell is that? Bunch of boxes and lines and a bunch of words? Well, don't worry. If you go up to the top here, you'll see we're on the event graph. If you go left, there's a viewport. If we click that, check it out. There it is. There's our gun. That's the thing we opened and the cool part we wanted to see, not that disgusting code. So this viewport works exactly like the one we saw in the first person map right here. Again, you can right click, you can move with WASD, E and Q, go up and down, and you'll see that we have our rifle here. Well, this is a blueprint. The event graph is the code that tells the model to do its animation and play sounds and stuff like that. Whereas the viewport is obviously the skeletal mesh, which is a fancy word for saying a model that can move. because there's two different types of models. You've got static meshes, and like the word implies, it is static. And then you have skeletal meshes, which can be manipulated to move around. But that was a lot of big words, and I'm losing people, okay? We're not gonna go there. I thought I would explain it, but listen, if you didn't follow, it's fine. We're not gonna go there today. Let's go ahead and, I'm gonna hit this little play button here, okay? And you'll see that I'm put into the game world. Now I'm actually playing the game that is the first person template. And if I pick up the gun, this is going to be extremely freaking loud. Okay, I don't know why it starts out so loud. Turn your speakers down. This is your warning. Turn them down. This is going to be loud. Okay? I don't know why it's so loud. But the blueprint is the gun. So that's a blueprint. We take something like the gun, we give it a skeletal mesh, some animations and some sound, and we give it some code, and now it is an object in our world that does a thing. My ears, I warned you. I don't know why it's so loud. Okay, so there's one more thing I want to talk about, then we'll move to the next step. Static mesh is a little misleading. Because remember how I said skeletal meshes can like move around, right? Skeletal meshes are like, woo, we can do things, and static meshes don't. That's only partially true. And I like to tell people this early. Because you see this box right here? This box is a static mesh, but watch what happens when I walk into it. It's moving. That's not very static. Huh. Well, note that the box is, yes, moving, but it isn't deforming. What does deforming mean? Deforming is a big fancy word to say it's not bending and stretching. It's not like moving on its own. It is a block. It'll always be a block. Yes, it can move, but it is a block. It won't be anything but a block. It's a block. So I thought I like to clarify that a little early. All right, let's pull up our itinerary. Ah, the details panel. The details panel at first is scary. It is filled with words and awfulness that a lot of people don't know, and you don't want to change stuff because you're like, I don't know what that is. But don't worry, we're gonna go over it. And to be honest with you, when it comes to game development, just start fucking everything up. That's right, just go haywire and you'll learn stuff really fast. Just change shit. See what happens. Anyway, all right, so the details panel. If you look at the right-hand side of your screen, you'll see at the top here, this is the outliner. I will explain what that is next. But down under, you'll see details. The details panel gives you all of the properties, or at least most of the properties, about a specific thing you have selected. So let's go back to our gun. If I click on the gun, you'll see on the details panel, you'll see first off, remember the skeletal mesh? Well, there it is. There's the sphere collision, which by the way, the sphere collision is just this outline of a sphere. We'll explain more about that later. It has a transform, so it's got a location, a rotation, and a scale. Actor hidden in game, net load on client, all these things. And look, it just keeps going. I can just keep scrolling. And all these panels aren't even open. A lot of them are, but there's some here that are closed. This is a ton of stuff and where a lot of people get scared. Because, I mean, think about it. Like, you're over here like, man, I'm just trying to get this thing to work. I don't know. What's the runtime grid? None? Is that bad? I don't know. Well, I don't either. What the hell is that? It doesn't matter, is the point. And if I wanted to learn about it, I could just Google it. But we're not going to go there. All right. Cool. So, above it, like I said, is the outliner. The outliner is, if you've used Photoshop or any program that has to do with any form of editing, videos, pictures, anything, you've seen some form of an outliner. Basically, this is a detailed list of everything in the scene. You can make folders to have, better folder structure, things of that nature. This is an example of how they like to put their folder structure. I don't think this is a detailed enough folder structure if I'm just being nitpicky. But that's for later. Who cares? Right now, all you need to know is we can close all these folders. And look, all of a sudden, this is much nicer to look at. And it makes more sense. In a way, I almost wish it started like this. Because if you're new, you're like, oh, block 1, you click this, and you're like, oh, this must be the stuff in block 1. It's so much cleaner. Anyway. So that's the basics of the user interface of the Unreal Engine. Obviously, we have a lot more to learn. This engine gets deeper and deeper. One thing you need to learn early about game development: the more you learn, the less you know. You learn about one thing and all of a sudden you realize you know nothing about it. And it's like that for literally everything. Alright, so let's pull up our itinerary again. So obviously, we can now look around and do things in the world, but what if we wanted to make a basic level? You know, we're in here. Yeah, it's cool. You're fancy coding and stuff like that. I just want to move stuff around. I want to rotate things, scale things. Well, I can help you with that. Let's go ahead and head back into our world here. And I'm going to grab this blue block here. You can grab whatever you want, but I'm going to grab this blue block. You'll see that there's these arrows here, okay? If you grab these arrows, you'll see that you can move this block around one direction at a time, or if you grab this little white section in the middle, it'll let you free move it however you want. I highly recommend getting used to grabbing the arrows though and doing one direction at a time. However, there are other things we can do. If you press E on your keyboard, you'll note that the tool changes. Now we're rotating our object. We can grab any of these angles here and start rotating it in that direction. Which, by the way, just to take one step back, W is for the arrows, you can see. It's also up here at the top of the screen in case you're not somebody that can use hotkeys or remember them easily. So W, E is rotation, and as you can see, it's also up here at the top of the screen. And then we're gonna press R, and now we get these boxes, and this is to scale. We can make this bigger in all kinds of weird different directions and things like that. But I'm gonna reset my scale back to all 1, and I did that from the details panel. I went to the scale, just set it all back to 1. But W is step forward. Only if we're holding right click. If we're holding right click, that is true. Otherwise, it is to get the move tool, and we can start moving things around. Again, W to move, E to rotate, R for scale. And now we can move stuff around. Sweet. But that doesn't really help us. If I wanted to make a level that goes off in that direction, it's not like I can do anything. I move the wall. Okay. Well, how do we add geometry? How do we start constructing the level that we want to make? Well, I'm going to teach you Unreal Engine's super easy way to add geometry to your level now. What you're going to do is with Unreal Engine selected, you're going to hold in Shift and you're going to press 5. And you're going to get this big menu. I don't know why mine's this big. It should not be this big. In fact, why is it this big? Yours probably won't be. But if it is, like mine, all you need to do is go over here to the right-hand side, and we're going to make it like this big. Much better. So much better. What we just entered is the modeling mode, okay? And if you don't want to remember Shift 5 for the modeling mode, at the top left-hand side here, you'll see that we have a drop-down box, and it says modeling mode. If you want to go back to just not having anything over here, just open this up and click on, again, selection or Shift 1. But, of course, Shift 5. Let's open up the modeling mode. Now, there's tons of tools in here, okay? However, we're going to use one of the most basic tools, but also one of the most powerful tools, okay? What you need to do is make sure you have nothing selected. You can do this in two different ways, because right now you can see I have the wall selected. I can either click in some empty space, and you'll see I've got nothing selected, or actually, I do. I selected the sky. And the only reason I caught that is because over here in the outliner, see how the sky sphere is now selected? So maybe that won't work. It will work if you don't have a sky sphere. However, we have one. So instead, just simply press escape. And now I've got nothing selected. Okay? This is important. Because what we're going to do now is on the left-hand side here. Do you see this button under Poly Model that says Cube GR? Or I think if it's bigger, it might actually say Cube Grid. If we have something selected when we click that, it's going to mess with things, okay? I'll explain what later, but for now, make sure nothing is selected and then click that Cube Grid button. How much of this will be on the test, Teach? That's the good thing about game development. There really isn't any tests, but if you want to learn and develop your skills, essentially all of it's on the test, you know? All right. So you'll see that this grid appeared. Now, this grid is used mostly as a measuring tool. Because if I move over here to the edge of the grid, you'll see I can go right off of it. It doesn't matter. You can move the grid. I honestly don't remember how, because I never do. If I knew the hotkey, I would tell you. But I don't use it, so I don't know. But anyway, so what this grid does is we can now start putting our mouse on stuff, and you'll see that it puts this box. See that? Well, if we wanted to grow this floor out, we could click right here. So that way, see how it's like on the edge here? We could click there. We could hold in Shift and then click at the other end. And you'll see it grabs all that area. With that area grabbed, press E a couple times. And you'll see that we're starting to build geometry in the world in real time. And it's in our game now. A lot of you might not realize that that's amazing. This is new as of Unreal Engine 5. So within the last year or two, otherwise we had to do this in 3D modeling programs. So appreciate this so much. How do you open the grid again? You're gonna hit Shift 5, or you can go up here and go to the modeling mode. And then within here, you'll see that there's Poly Model, and then there's Cube GR. And I think if it's expanded, it might fully say Cube Grid. No, it just says Cube GR regardless. You'll click that, and then you can start grabbing things. And E, as you can see, we'll keep pressing it, builds out. Q, however, eats in. Okay? So like, let's say we wanted this to be a little bit different. What we would do is we build out, and let's say we want an indent that you could fall through in the middle. We will then click somewhere else, like somewhere right here in the middle. Hold Shift, click where we want it to end, like that. And then start pressing Q, and look at that. We are making shapes for our level in real time. Now, let's say we're done. Okay, before you start putting other stuff in the world and doing other stuff, go to the bottom here and press accept, and bam, we now have a cube grid object. And the best part is this is now an asset in your game. That means you can duplicate it, however, if you want. Yeah, if you press R for scale, you can then scale it. I wouldn't recommend scaling it, but you can. You can rotate it, and you can use it as many times as you want. Like, look, I could technically use this as a door as well, a wall with a door in it. If I wanted to, I absolutely could. Not going to. In fact, I'm going to delete those and just leave the one here. Okay, so okay, let's see, hold on. Also make sure you actually select the mesh you want to build off of before you enter the cube grid. I keep forgetting to click on the mesh and then wondering why it wasn't building off of it. That is accurate. So, remember how I was saying make sure you don't have anything selected? It actually has a lot to do with what Hal just said. If you select something, so for example, let's just click the skybox. It's gonna go haywire, but that's fine. I have the skybox selected right now. If I then open Cube Grid with the skybox selected, it will let me do it, okay? But what happens if I start building? It actually might be fixed in 5.1, by the way, Hal. We'll see. It actually works. Okay, let me brief tangent. In 5.0, before 5.1, it would have built sky sphere boxes. I'm curious what happens if I hit accept right now. Because it actually built the geometry. Let's hit accept. Yeah, okay, look at the bottom right. Cannot modify built engine. Okay, see, it didn't work. But, to emphasize the point, this is why you want nothing selected, unless you're actually wanting to edit that one thing. And in fact, let's go ahead and teach you a lesson about the Cube Grid early, okay? Let's say I did want to use this as a door as well. I was like, you know what? I like this model. Let's go ahead and, pull this up. Let's move it over. And yes, amazing. It's gonna be a wall with a door. Awesome. Okay. But let's say I edit the floor now. I'm like, you know what? I don't want this hole here anymore, okay? So I go in, I have it selected. I go into the Cube Grid. I grab the area with the hole. I fill it in by pressing E and I hit accept. The door is gone. So, if you are ever using the Cube Grid and you make a duplicate of something you just did, and then you go edit something that, like the base item or even one of the duplicates, it's going to affect all of them. Okay? So I tend to not do this. I tend to be like, I'm not going to duplicate my stuff unless it's like a wall. But even then, I don't do it that often. Okay? But yeah. So if I don't have anything selected and I try to edit this floor, right? So like, let's grab the edge here. I'm like, this is too long. You know what? I wanna make this not as long, and I press Q. Look, it ate right into the floor, but the floor's still there. Why did it do that? Well, because we didn't have the floor selected when we clicked on the Cube Grid. So it's not editing this Cube Grid anymore. It's editing whatever was selected, which was nothing. So we're not deleting anything when we hit Q. Nothing's happening. Hope that makes sense. But we're not completely done yet. We're going to talk about one more thing with the Cube Grid. Okay? Sometimes you don't want things to be that thick. Okay? I've had many significant others with that problem. You know, it's a gift and a curse. But you can see, like, for example, this floor here is double the size of the floor here. So let's say this was like, you know, the player could see this. It wouldn't look very good, would it? It wouldn't look that good at all. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to delete this. We're just going to grab it. We're going to click delete. And what we're going to do is we're going to, with nothing selected, open up the Cube Grid. Okay. And on the left-hand side, you're going to see that we have some things that we can change over here. Don't worry too much about what we're changing. But you see this grid power? If you change this, it changes the size that we're building in. So for example, you can see by looking at the grid, that's what grid power 5 looks like. Let's change it to 3. See how much smaller it got? And look at our selection tool. All of a sudden, it's much smaller and we can build much smaller geometry, okay? We can build in all kinds of different directions with it. And then, you know, it's like, I want this to be bigger. So I put it at like 6. Click on the top, press E. It doesn't fit very well. But you can see that we can change the size of what we're working with simply by changing the grid power. I believe, let's change this back to 3. Click on this. Let's just get rid of all this. I believe the floor is actually 4. So if we go to grid power 4, yeah. So now with grid power 4, we can actually build out of this at the right size. And then just hit accept. And now look, this is the correct size. We got our floor back. Sweet. Amazing. Let's go ahead and something you should do all the time. I want this to be so ingrained into you that, in fact, I think I've already done it like 6 times. I'm not even kidding. But I forgot to say anything because it's super ingrained into me. Are you ready? Control S. It saves. Save, 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 save. In fact, a lot of the times I recommend you hit Control Shift S. The difference? Control S saves whatever you're looking at. So if we're in the first person map, it saves that level. Control Shift S saves all. Okay? The only time you can't Control Shift S is occasionally. Unreal Engine likes to make an autosave of your level, and then it wants to save it as a new level. I'm still trying to learn exactly why it does that. It's very weird. I'm sure there's a reason. I'm sure I just don't understand, but yeah, Control Shift S unless it's trying to save another copy of your level, in which case just keep saving. It's fine. Yes, that drives me crazy. Thank you, Hal. All right. I'm glad it's not just me. Like, holy crap, it's so silly. But okay, so got that. Let's get that saved. All right, let's look at our itinerary. We can move objects, we can rotate them, we can scale them. We did the cube grid, but let's add some materials. You know what I mean? Like, look at this thing. Well, first I should probably explain what a material is. A material is exactly what you think it is. So you know how my hoodie here is made out of a material? Well, that's essentially what exactly it is in Unreal Engine as well. So for example, let's click on our cube grid here, okay? And on the right-hand side of your screen in the details panel, that thing we went over, you'll see that right now, if you look, there should be something called materials. If it's not open, like if it looks like this, go ahead and click the little caret to open it up, okay? Oh, hold on, let's go ahead and catch up on chat real quick, apologies. If it happens, you can go to save all and then just uncheck. Yeah, that's true, metal, that is a material. I have a question about the modeling mode and the mesh bool tool when I'm not sure if you're going to go over tonight. Might be a bit more advanced. I didn't plan on going over it tonight, and I honestly don't use the Boolean tool very often. Boolean tends to be just add and remove based on what is true and what is false. I've done it in 3D programs. I haven't done it in Unreal yet. So I'm sorry, Hal. I'm not 100% certain I will be able to answer your question, but I will look into it. Vanessa's a material girl. Girl? True. Okay, anyway, back to what we were talking about. Details panel, materials. You'll see element 0 and it says none. Okay, well, let's go ahead and add a material to the floor. Okay, so for example, there's a whole bunch of them that come with the Unreal Engine. Also, is this music super distracting to me? It's got so much going on. I'm so sorry. I'm going to the next one. Oh, much better. Holy shit. I didn't like all the stuff going on in that song. But anyway, you'll see there's all kinds of materials here. Like, for example, we have brick clay. If I click on this, look, it's now made out of brick clay. Isn't that freaking sick? Now, I'm actually going to go and I'm going to go actually look at it in game. And the reason I'm going to do that is because I want you to see how realistic it looks. Remember, we know that this is a flat surface because we made it. It's a fucking rectangle. We know this is a flat surface, but look how it doesn't look flat at all. That's the power of materials. Materials tell the engine what happens when light hits me. What happens when something else hits me? How do I calculate shadows? All the things that our eyes need to see is calculated in a material. Let's go ahead and look at a couple more. I've been using it for basically cutting pieces in meshes. I have no idea if I should be. I don't think it's going to cause a problem, Hal. The only thing I can think of, if you're not used to 3D modeling, is the UVs and the amount of... So basically, anytime you use a mesh boolean, a lot of the times in 3D software, it creates thousands of vertices, which can start to slow your system down because it's rendering thousands and thousands of points in the 3D space. Is that true for the Unreal Engine? I haven't messed with it, but if you start to see performance issues, I would just stop using it and try to find an alternative. But yeah, let's add some different materials here. On the right hand side, you'll see right now I chose brick. Let's do something really fun. I believe gold is in here. Gold. Now it's made out of gold. Kinda looks like piss snow, I'm not gonna lie, but that's gold. However, we're gonna notice something, okay? We're actually gonna take a look at this and we're gonna notice something. Do you guys see the problem with the material? Do you see how, like, it's got cuts through it? Kind of looks like Pope. Like, you can see that the material's not continuing. It's like stopping and then restarting and then stopping and then restarting and then stopping and then restarting. Yeah, tiling. Yeah. That's because we used the cube grid. But I got good news. There's a tool to fix this. So, let's say this piss snow. You know, I was gonna call it gold, but it's piss snow. Let's say this is what we really want this floor to be. So now we need to fix the tiling. On the left-hand side in the mode toolbar, so make sure modeling mode is still here. We're gonna scroll on down. I'm just gonna keep on scrolling until we get to UVs, okay? What a UV is, have you guys ever seen those puzzles where, actually, you know what? Hold on. I believe there's a really good picture that explains UVs, like, perfectly. Oh, hold on. It's showing me UV light. That's not what I want. The exact example I wanted isn't here, unfortunately. But we'll still use like this. Here you go. This is like damn near a RuneScape character. Let me zoom in. I know you guys can't see it. Give me a sec. So like, this is what the UVs do, okay? What a UV is your material is essentially just an image, and the UV wraps around the 3D model, so that way you actually get a model that looks like it's colored and it's actually, you know, ready to go. A lot of times nowadays, these UVs are mixed with materials. So that way, you know, whenever you look up close, like if you guys ever been playing something like maybe one of the newer Final Fantasies or just a newer game in general, and then it gets real close to like their clothing and you're like, holy shit. That's just the materials, and obviously the materials are in the UV. The UV then wraps around the model, and that's what UVs are, okay? So, our UVs are fucked up. You can tell they're fucked up because, well, look at the lines. It's tiling. It looks like crap. So, in our modeling mode, the modeling toolbar, you'll see that we have something about UVs. Luckily, one of these is the easiest thing to use in the world. These all have very good reasons to use them for a lot of different niche cases, but 99% of the time you're gonna get away with using the one called project. Okay, so click on the project button. Oh my god, look at our piss snow. It just stretched and looks awful. You want to see something even worse? Look what happens if I look at the side. Oh my goodness. Hold on, let's go to the light. Ugh! Ugh! Why is it doing that? Well, if we look at the projection type, right now it's set to a plane, which means that It's only worried about top down. It doesn't care about anything else, okay? So the edges are just 1 pixel, or that color, right? That the pixel, like as it goes, and then it's stretched, okay? So instead we're gonna change the projection type, we're gonna change it to a box. Now this is gonna help a little bit, because if we look at it, it still looks terrible. Stretched to all hell and back. Ugh. What happened to my fucking piss snow? This is awful. Well, in order to change it, we're gonna change the dimensions, okay? Now, there is a lot of different dimensions you can use, okay? It doesn't look too bad, you're correct, but we're gonna make it look way better, Story. So, with the dimensions, the golden number for me has been 150 in all 3 X, Y, and Z, okay? You are gonna change it depending on what you're modeling, what you're doing, but trust me, start at 150 on each of these, and look at that. Oh my God. We have a nice, consistent, flowing material. If you look, the edges, nice, good looking, okay? Now you're probably wondering, first off, what is 150? And second off, why 150? Okay. So, you see this green box? Essentially, what it's doing is, oh goodness, I don't know if I can put this into words. I've thought about it and I conceptually understand it, but I've never put it into words before. Basically what's happening is that box is the size of the material in each direction, and then it tiles. Now obviously, because it's a good material, you can't really see the tiling. I don't know why more people don't teach this. Is there an advantage to changing the tiling in the material? Just more control? Wait. Oh, I know what you're saying. It's the old way, I believe, Hal, because projecting is kind of new. It's the old way to do it, and I think some people prefer it. I prefer projection. As you can see, it gets the job done. Now, there are times where projection isn't going to get you what you want as easily. You can still do it, but let me give you an example. I'm going to go ahead and hit accept, by the way, guys, because I'm done with my projection, so I'm going to hit accept. But an example of when tile or projection's not always going to work out in your favor is check out like this grid, okay? Getting the material, if you project it, like let's click on this, for example, let's project. I want to show you. Let's project the grid material. See that? So if I change this to like 150, 150, 150, oh, it doesn't even let me. It's something to do with the engine. I can't use this as an example, but this screwing up is a perfect example of why projection isn't always the best answer. Now, here's the thing. You can actually translate it. It's not going to let me. I hate that this is happening because you can translate it. It's just not letting me because it has something to do with the fact it's a system material. And for anyone that doesn't know what I'm talking about, anything that's like a system material or an engine asset is something that Unreal included, and they don't want you fucking with it. That's the only reason I can't. But you can change the parameters in there to make it fit, but it doesn't work as perfect as you want sometimes. Because I was trying to figure out how to fix this. When I first started, and every video I found showed how to set up the material and then making material instances to adjust it, or making it a parameter and then adjusting it. Which, yeah, again, those are probably Unreal Engine, either Unreal Engine 4 or earlier tutorials, or people that just aren't accustomed to the new tools yet, because again, projection is new. So it's probably just remnants of transition still, if I had to guess. All right, guys, I'm gonna change this material because the piss snow is actually too bright. We're not doing piss snow, we're changing this. We're gonna go rust. Why? Because rust won't assault my eyeballs, okay? That's why rust. Okay, sweet. So now we know the basics of materials. We know how to use the cube grid. We can basically make a level and make it look cool now. How cool is that? You guys right now could straight up make your own level, add materials to it, and make it look cool. Obviously, there's a lot of things we still need to learn. but you're off to a good start already. But we're not done with the itinerary. We still have stuff to do. So let's keep going. Ooh, lights. Lights, 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 lights sound fun. Okay? Lights sound really, really fun. But I'm telling you, if you're new, prepare for hell. Okay? Lights are not beginner friendly. But I wanted to talk about them, okay? I wanted to talk about them because they're important. In fact, we're actually going to go slightly off script here, even though this isn't scripted. This is the most it's scripted. I'm just really fucking good at doing this shit live because I've been doing it for years. What we're going to do is hit Control Space to open your content browser. Go all the way to the root folder by clicking on content. I'm now going to create a folder by right-clicking, and I'm going to go to new folder. I'm naming mine Brandon Winkler _ blueprints, okay? You name yours, your name _ blueprints. Basically, anything that you're going to do that is your work is going to be in that folder. The reason I do this, you might be wondering why I started doing that. A industry professional helped me with one of my school projects, and that's what he did. That's it. That's why I do it. So now we're going to open up Brandon Winkler Blueprints. I'm now going to create another folder because, again, folder structure is huge. And I know what I'm doing, so I know what folders to make. If you don't know what folders to make, you'll learn as you go. Don't panic. Speaking of panic, I want to drink my blueberry acai energy drink. And then I'll probably wash it down with water. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's because I'm getting older. Sorry, this is a small tangent. But like acidic stuff messes with my throat nowadays. So what I'll do is I'll just drink a little bit of this and then I'll just chase it with water. All right. I'm going to name this folder Levels. Okay? I'm going to open it up. I'm going to right click and I'm going to click on level, okay? Now, naming conventions are extremely important. A lot of time when you're new, you just name stuff whatever. And, you know, I'm not against it if you're new, but I'm telling you, getting out of that habit as quickly as possible is absolutely key. Okay? So, the Unreal way to, like, the Unreal naming convention is to start with what it is and then underscore in what you want to name it. Some stuff is shorthand, some stuff is not. Levels are not shorthand. So, level _ and I'm just going to name this light example. Okay? The reason you want to start doing this sort of naming convention is because, one, you can quickly access your levels by, like, if we were in content and I go to search content and I type in the word level. First off, how dare Unreal Engine... Oh, wait, is this showing me stuff that's in this level? I didn't even know that was a thing. It's showing me stuff that's in the level. I didn't know that was a thing. That's funny. But you can see now, here it is, level _ light example. There's a lot of other reasons naming conventions are important. But for now, 10 out of 10, okay? Level light example. Now we're going to open it. It's going to tell you need to save stuff. Save it. Save selected, okay? Save. And now we're in the darkest depths of, I don't know why, but my brain really wants to make a joke that this is like inside someone's butthole. I don't know why, and it didn't complete the joke. So I just had to tell you the joke like that. Someone taught me to make a 01 my folder, and then it'll always stay at the top. Oh yeah, so that's one way you can do it. Like, for example, let me show you guys how I do folder structure with some of my editing. If I go to E and then go to OBS recordings, you'll see that, like, for example, underscore assets, underscore music. So basically anything I need to be first, I'll do underscores, or like for your example, you put 01. That is something you can do. It's an advanced technique because it's not necessary, but it's something that will increase your workflow. It's just a neat little fun fact. But anyway, we're in the dark void of someone's butthole because that's what my that's what my brain wanted to do. So, how do we use this? Well, we could build with the cube grid, right? I mean, to be fair, if we start building, there'll be something to look at. Because right now there's nothing to look at. Let's try it. So if we hit Shift F, oh, I wasn't selected on Unreal Engine. Shit, Shift, not the first thing. F. Click on cube grid. Oh my, white lines. We are currently at 0, 0, 0. We are at the world center. So this is just the grid. So just right click and hit E and now you're above the grid. Here we go. We got something to work with. We can see. Amazing. Okay. So let's just make a plane for our player to be on. I'm going to click here. I'm just going to go somewhere over here. Hold shift and click. So we get this nice squarish rectangle. Press E once. Uh-oh. Well, that's weird. It's black. I'm gonna hit accept. It's there. It's because we don't have lights. Okay? Right now, we have no lights. So, at the top of your viewport, you'll see there's an option. There's a little circle and it says lit. If we click on this and we click on unlit, now it's showing everything with no light. Okay? So, I want to do a slight detour. I want to show you what it looks like when you turn lights off in a world that has stuff in it, like materials. So you don't have to do this. This is 100% my thing real quick. Honestly, I wouldn't even follow along with what I'm about to do. I'm just going to go to content. I'm going to search. Here we go. Yeah, save. So, oh, what is this? Why is there a world Go away. I don't know why that came up. I've never seen that before. But this is the power of lighting, by the way. This is how important your lighting is. This is no lights. Lights. Something that you can probably relate to is if you played really old games, all of a sudden this kind of looks like that, doesn't it? And then more modern games look like that. It's because of the advancements in lighting. Lighting is everything. Yes, textures and materials have increased in resolution, but as you can see, the lighting. Anyway, I just wanted to show you what it's like whenever there is no light versus light in a world that has materials. Okay, so back to here, unlit. We need to be able to see this, right? Because honestly, something that you're going to come to find out is that if you try to build stuff without lighting, it's really hard to tell the scale of things. Like, how big is that platform? Does anyone know? I don't. My brain has an idea, right? I can kind of extrapolate based on the cube grid, but I don't really know how big that is. Could be massive for all I know. So something I could do, which I recommend everyone do this if you want to follow along. At the top left, you'll see there's a little cube here with a plus. If you click it, this is how you quickly add things that are very common to add to a project. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go down here to basic, and I'm going to go over to player start, and I'm going to drag this onto the platform. Okay? That is exactly what you think it is. It's where the player is going to start. Well, let's see how big this is. I'm going to hit play. There's a problem. There's no lights. Again. So even if I tried to view it, I can't. So how do we add lights? Well, there's all kinds of lights. The one that you probably want to add first is something that's called a directional light. A directional light is essentially the sun. And I'm not even kidding. It's essentially the sun, because it doesn't originate from a specific point. It is a global illumination pointed in a specific direction. I think it's better if I show you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this to lit, so that way we're back in the darkness. We're going to go back up here to the quickly add to project button, and we're going to hover over light. Now you'll see there's directional, point, spot, rect, and sky. For now, we're going to do the one I said. We're going to pull out a directional light, and we're just going to drop it. Now, if you look at it, it doesn't have to be anywhere specific, by the way, but if you look at it, you'll see that the arrow is pointed down, right? Down and to the left. Well, that's the direction that the sun, quote unquote, is pointed right now. In fact, you can see that the edges here are completely black, but if we go to this side, they're lit up. That's because this light is acting as if the sun is right over there. Now, obviously, if this was a real sun, you'd still be able to see this because it'd be stuff for the light to bounce off of, and it'd bounce back, and this would be lit up a little. But directional lights are a perfect way to get started so you can actually start to see the scale of things. So now we have a directional light here. Let's go ahead and hit play. And now we can kind of get a sense of how big our platform actually is. And I recommend you do this often. I'm sure Hal, someone that is newer to game development, that is starting to get into it, he's probably doing what a lot of new developers do. You start to build things, and then you come to the realization it's way bigger than you thought it was. You're like, oh my god, I thought I was making like a living room, but this is like the size of a gymnasium. It is important to continually test how big things are. And the best way to do that is add lighting and just keep play testing. How long does it take to get from point A to point B? You know, does this feel like what it would in real life? Is this big? Is this small? And it takes playing around with it. But that's one of the good things about the cube grid, is it's very dynamic. You can absolutely just start moving stuff around. Okay, cool. So let's go ahead and do something extra real quick. I'm gonna go back to having nothing selected. I'm gonna hit Shift 5, and I'm gonna click on the cube grid. And now I'm gonna build a wall, and you'll see why here in a second. I'm gonna build this wall up, and I'm gonna hit accept. Uh-oh. This is pitch black. How am I supposed to test if an area is behind a wall? Like, I literally can't. Like, this is ridiculous. Holy hell. So, the good news is there is another beginner-friendly thing that you can do. If you click on this right here, and it's going to get really bright when you do this, by the way, but we'll fix it, don't worry. Have this selected, your directional light. Hit W, so that way we have the move tool selected, okay? You're going to hold Alt on the keyboard, all right? You're going to make sure Alt is selected, and you're going to drag off in a direction. And check it out. You now have 2 directional lights, and it's very bright. Ugh. God. Ugh. So, to fix the brightness, right now they're both set to 10, but we have 2. So what I recommend is setting them both to 5. And sorry, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. I need to remember I'm teaching brand new people. With the directional light selected on the right-hand side, you'll see intensity, okay? That's how bright the light is. We're going to take that and we're going to set it to 5. Oh, not 52. Nuh-uh. About blinded everybody here. Set that to 5. We're going to click on the other one. We're also going to set it to 5. And then we're going to do a little bit of rotation, okay? This one is directly that way, okay? So I'm going to take it. I'm going to hit E, so it's rotating. And I'm going to move it like 20 degrees. 20 degrees either left or right, your call. Then I'm going to grab this one and I'm going to turn it 180 degrees to start, okay? But we're going to now turn it the opposite direction we did the first one. So this one's kind of left. Let's make this one kind of right. Now, what the hell did we just do? Why did we do that? Well, we now have a directional light hitting every possible angle of this level. So if we look, the sides have a little bit of illumination. You can see that the darkness is not complete darkness. We can actually see what's going on. We can hit play. You can see that we can check the scale. Nothing is pitch black. Now, this is obviously not something you're supposed to do. I mean, I'm literally getting a warning from Unreal Engine right now that's like, bro, what the fuck are you doing? Okay. But when you're prototyping and starting a level, this is perfectly fine. Okay. So that's directional light, and it's really good for starting your level. So that way you can see what's going on. Okay. But for now, because I want to show you guys other types of lights and what they do, I'm going to delete one of them. I'm going to delete the one that's facing the other direction. So now we got the pitch black again, which is perfect because now we're going to use that to our advantage here. What are the other types of lights? Well, let's go to the quick add. Let's go to the lights and let's grab a point light. So like the name says, it is a point where light is emitting. It's kind of like a light bulb, just like the icon shows. Now, it's not actually a light bulb. If we hit play, you'll see that it's not actually there as a light bulb, but it's essentially one, and that's why the icon is showing a light bulb, okay? Just like the directional light on the right-hand side, you'll see we can increase the intensity, we can lower the intensity, we can do all kinds of stuff with it. And that's pretty much it. Point lights are very, very simple, okay? But they're very effective. And we're actually going to make a blueprint soon using a point light. So I'm going to delete that. Let's see what other types of lights there are. We have the spotlight. Spotlights are fun, especially when you make horror games. So spotlights are, again, exactly what you would imagine. If you imagine this is a stage, right? You've probably heard of spotlights with stages, and we turn this up. You'll see that it is kind of like a directional light, right? Because the directional light is just like, blast light in this direction. Well, so is the spotlight, but way more controlled. And you can see right now, you know, you've got a radius of how like wide you want the light. Just like the other, we have the intensity. We can increase it. We can lower it. Stuff like that. Quick question, are we using lumen? Currently we are. Yes, I have not changed any of the default settings. We are 100% on lumen right now. But let's go ahead and set that intensity back to 8. Now, something I want to talk about when it comes to the spotlight is, you know, we have the inner cone angle. So this is kind of where the light is the strongest. And then we have the outer cone angle, and we can kind of hone in where we want the fall off to land. The fall off is essentially, if you go from the inner radius to the outer radius, the intensity drops. So you can kind of see that gradients here. You can see the super intense, oh, I gotta back up and I'll explain why in a second. It's super intense right here in the inner radius, and then it slowly falls off until it gets to the outer, and then it's no light again. Okay? So let me, God, this is somewhat advanced, but I think it's really important to learn this early because I'm just going to be blunt here. It pisses me off. It's such a stupid feature to have on by default. Okay, there's this thing that Unreal Engine does that is ridiculously good. Okay? If you are in a game that is completed and it is set up, 10 out of 10. It is amazing. It literally acts like your eyes are adjusting to light. Like, let's look at the bright stuff. See how it slowly gets less bright as if your eyes are getting used to looking at it. And then we go to the dark stuff. And then it gets brighter over here because our eyes are adjusting to the darkness. That's awesome, except when you're trying to make a level and the light keeps changing and you have no clue what the hell is going on. I hate that it's on by default. It makes no sense, but it is what it is. So I'm going to save. Always save often. And we're actually going to turn it off. I think teaching you guys to turn it off is probably a good call. What you need to do is there's two ways to go about it. I think my favorite way, though, is to just do it through the project settings, because then we don't have to worry about post-processing, which is a whole bundle of bugs. Well, we're definitely not going to talk about that in this episode. But if you go up here to edit, you should be able to see project settings, okay? So go to edit project settings. Mine is already open. I keep mine open by default. And you're going to go up here to the search, okay? And now you have to give me a minute while I remember what it's called. It starts with an E. Exposure. So you're going to start typing in the word exposure, okay? And you're going to see on the right-hand side, auto exposure is turned on, okay? Did I say right-hand, left-hand side? And you're going to uncheck it. We don't want exposure on, okay? And then if you go back to your level, now look. You can actually see what the lighting looks like. It's not changing on us, okay? Now, if you want that for your game and you set it up, 10 out of 10, do it. Yeah, eyes adjusting. What a cool feature. When you're editing, no. Turn it off. You need to be able to see what you're working with, and I hate that it's on by default. Cannot stress that enough. Anyway, now that you've changed that, let's go ahead and hit save. I'm going to delete my spotlight. And let's look at the other types of lights, shall we? Ooh, a rect light. So a lot of people don't know what the hell to do with these. So basically, I'm going to point mine at the ground here by rotating with E. Basically, a rect light is essentially just shooting light from a rectangle. Is simple as that sounds. And on the right-hand side in the details panel, you see it's got a source width. It's got a source width and a source. I do not have a lisp, I promise you. A source height, okay? And you can see that we can just kind of adjust it, and it just starts illuminating light throughout the entire rectangle. We can increase the intensity, we can lower the intensity. Basically, what I like to do with rect lights, okay? I don't think you're gonna use them a lot when you're a beginner. I think you will eventually use them, as you can see Hal loves them. I like to use them in conjunction with point lights, because when you have a lot of point lights, it's really hard on your system. Your performance is gonna start decreasing. So one way that you can easily fix that is to have a point light and then have it also contained within a rect light that's a little bit dimmer. How do I get the details panel for the light? Oh no, so that's a good question, Lucky. If you lose your details panel, if it's gone, and you're like, wow, fudge. What you want to do is you want to go up here to the top and you want to click on window. And then you'll see there's one that says details. And then you'll just want to make sure details 1 is selected, and you can just go ahead and click that. Mine's open, so I don't need to. And it should pop up for you. But yeah, so basically what I would do, like, if this was a really large area, like here, let me give you a better example. I'm gonna delete the wall, I'm gonna delete the directional light. And basically what I would do is I would take this, let's make it about the same size as the platform, okay? Let's take the intensity to about 16, so that way it actually has the power to deal with the size of this area. And then what I would do is I would take like a point light. By the way, this is just a random use case. This isn't like a specific tutorial. I'm just showing you like a random use case. And then in combination, if I had like a lamp here in my game, it looks like it has a ton of fall off whenever it doesn't. It's a rect light with a point light. There's millions of ways to achieve this look. This is just kind of one of the ways that I do it. But yeah. So now I'm going to teach you something really fun. I'm going to teach you a hack, okay? I'm going to teach you all a hack to make your lighting look realistic. So right now this lighting looks okay. But I'm going to put a material on our floor, and I think it's really going to emphasize my next point. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take, I'm going to do like a common material, something that you'd be like, okay, that makes sense on. We'll do like a cobblestone smooth, okay? which, as you can see, looks pretty fucking decent. I'm not gonna lie. So I'm not even gonna project because it looks fine. I was gonna project. You know what? I'm gonna project. I lied. I keep changing my mind. Project. We're on box, which is perfect. Let's change the dimensions. As I said, my golden number is 150, and we're gonna hit accept. So the lighting looks okay, but with the cobblestone there, all of a sudden you're kind of noticing like it looks weird, but you're not sure why. Well, I know why. Wait, this is how to for gold source, right? I don't know what that means, but yes, this is exactly what that is. So the reason your eye is probably not a huge fan of the light is because it's pure white. Pure white does not exist at all. You won't find it in real life. It's not real. It can't get you, don't worry. So how do we go about making it not pure white? Well, I'm going to click on my point light, and you'll see that there is actually a light color. If we click on the big white area, we even get a color picker, okay? So it depends on the mood you're going for, but since this is a really dark scene, I'm going to move mine towards blue, okay? So all I'm going to do is slightly start nudging it towards blue, okay? Until I can really start to see a little bit of a difference. So now it's got that real dark bluish tone to it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to save it. I'm just going to hit OK. Now I'm going to teach you something cool, something that Hal probably doesn't even know. And if he does know, he's going to pretend like he didn't. So that way I feel really good about myself, okay? If you hold in Shift, okay, and you right click on light color, you just copied it. If you click on your other light and you hold in Shift and left click now the light color, it'll paste it. It's dope as fuck. But yeah, so now we've got a much cooler light. And it looks a lot better on your eyes. All of a sudden it feels like the darkness fits. It feels a little bit more real. I will say something you can do. Whenever you're doing any sort of photography or film, so Hal will probably appreciate this advice, is anytime you have two lights working in conjunction like this, it's actually good to use two separate colors because it adds almost a three-dimensional effect to it. So right now they're both set to the same color. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to click on my rect light. I'm going to leave the point light that blue color, okay? But I'm actually going to click on my rect light. Now, I don't know anything about color theory, so I'm just going to pick random colors. But like, let's like move it kind of more towards the red for the rect light. Maybe a little bit less, though. A little bit less saturated. A little bit less. In fact, let's move the point light down a little bit so it's hitting the ground a little harder. And all of a sudden, we have a much more realistic material because we've got multiple different light colors hitting the source at the same time. So for some reason I am helpless. My world is bright and not dark. How should I make it dark like you did? So, out of curiosity, so yeah, one, we got rid of the directional light. But also, at the top, make sure yours is set to lit. Yours might be unlit. If it's unlit, it looks like this. But if you change it to lit and the directional light is gone, you'll be able to do this sort of thing. If you have any more questions, let me know. If anyone, by the way, if anyone's watching and they're lost or just have questions or anything in general, please feel free to ask. But yeah, so that's what happens when you mix two colors. It's really cool. It's a nice effect. Makes the material pop a lot better. Now, you don't have to. Again, it all depends on the mood you're going for. It worked awesome. So, I think the one last thing I want to talk about with lights is the attenuation radius, okay? The attenuation radius is ridiculously important because trying to put it in new person terms, I'll make it as simple as possible. Too many light overlap, game go lag. Okay, too many light overlap, game go lag. Okay, so what the attenuation radius does is it's this circle. Anything in this circle is being calculated as being hit by the point light. So if we decrease the attenuation radius, you'll see that the circle gets smaller, but watch what happens. The point light is affecting less and less. You see that? More and more, less and less, okay? So the attenuation radius is something that you just have to start. I'm going to change my attenuation radius to 1,000, by the way. But it's just something that you have to work with. Because when you go to light a level, you're going to want to be like, well, I want lights here, and I want lights here, and here, and here. And ooh, I like that. That looks really good. But look what starts to happen. You see how there's these two all of a sudden have X's on them? Basically, the engine is telling you that because you have too many lights overlapping, the calculation time, I think it's like more than quadrupled. It's like some ridiculous number. In fact, I'll show you. Do not do this. This is just for me. Don't worry about it. We're gonna build lighting only because I want the error. Because it'll tell me the error. It'll go, whoa, dude, do not do that. So I'm a build so we can get the error, because it tells you some odd number whenever it's completed. It shouldn't take long. Oh, maybe it will. Maybe I messed up. We'll see. It shouldn't though. Hopefully I don't like drop frames or something while I'm building. I didn't really think this through. While it does that, how is everybody? How are you how's your day? 2, how's the learning going? Here we go. Oh, it just says performance loss, failed to allocate shadow map channel, blah blah blah. So yeah, it's not gonna tell me, but you can see right here, it is telling me it's a problem, but it's not giving me specifics. Good. I'm glad to hear it, Link. Great. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Guys, I'm gonna go ahead and take off my hoodie. Please don't sexualize my body, okay? Please, like, just stop. It's weird. Don't do it, okay? This is an Unreal Engine tutorial. Stop it. Alright. Well, learning is working, I think, but my UI seems completely different. Are you sure this is gold source? Dude, trust me. You must have missed a hotkey, storyteller. Too late. But anyway, so yeah. However, let's say we like this look, right? But like, what's something we can do, right? Like, we need these lights here. Well, play with your attenuation radius. So I'm gonna bring this in. You can see that it is affecting the world, right? But if I can make it a little bit smaller, and then maybe take this one and take it down some. Okay, that still looks pretty good. Let's bring this one in. Okay, let's bring this one in a little bit. Let me bring that one down. Bring this one down. And all of a sudden, this is the only one that's having an issue. Actually, never mind. This one's a little bit too. So let's just move it. Let's just move it a little bit. Bring it over. But essentially, this is what you're going to do. Like, it is what it is. So there we go. We still kind of have that look. We might have to lower the attenuation radius a little bit more here, because I don't want it. It's hitting the rect light, I think, is the problem. There we go. Can you just turn off? Can you not just turn off shadow casting? Well, first off, hello, Pixel. Second off, you probably can. Yes. That would probably be a good idea for things like the rect light. But yeah, no, that is a excellent point, Pixel. So in order to do what Pixel's suggesting, What you're going to want to do is over here in your details panel for whatever light that you would want to do this on is just click on search when in the details panel. Just type in the word shadow. And you'll see that you get a little box here that says cast shadow. You can actually just uncheck this. So that's one way to also kind of stop that overlap from happening. But sometimes this isn't always the best option. And the reason for that is because if you have a static mesh, like let's say, here, let me get a static mesh. Let's grab one. I'm going to hit Control Space to open up my content browser. And I'm going to just go to, you probably don't have this button. I'll show you how to do it later, so don't worry about not having it right now. I'm going to grab a static mesh, and I'm going to grab like this shape tube, okay? And as you can see, it's casting shadows. But let's say we were like, man, I'm trying to get these lights to be a little bit more stacked up. I really like the look of this. Sometimes it's not always an option, because if I turn it off, all of a sudden the tube doesn't have a shadow anymore. And it doesn't look as good, right? Looks fine, doesn't look fine. So, yes, Pixel. Yes, it's a great thing to know. It's a great thing to try. But just remember, you do have to kind of consider which ones do have shadows and which ones don't. But yeah, still, great point, Pixel. All right. When do I add the Freddy Fazbear body pillow? You just stay for the late stream and I'll show you where to download it. Anyway, so let's go to our itinerary. Lights is huge. Oh, and we already did player start. Check it out. Boom! You guys can now make your own level from scratch. Using all of Unreal Engine's basic stuff, by the way. We haven't even like touched where to get static meshes or how to add them or anything like that. But regardless, you guys could make quite a bit just knowing what you know. However, guys, it's time to do the scary thing, okay? Blueprints, test, debug, and iteration. All right, this is the coding. This is the stuff where things get all spicy and people get nervous and they don't want to touch it and they think they're gonna break stuff. Oh no, Lucas! Fuck! That sucks, man. Oh man, I'm so sorry, Lukey or Lucky. Pressure plate turns on a light. We're not going to do an animation for a pressure plate, but we're going to do something similar because we're going to do proximity, which in that case you could still do the exact same coding, but just put it on a pressure plate. So it's essentially the same coding, but we're not going to actually have the plate. All right. That sucks, by the way, because we're about to do the fun part, Lucky. I'm so sad right now that you can't do this with us. You better watch the VOD, dude, and come back and do this. All right. Let's talk about blueprints. I kind of overviewed what they were with the gun, right? It's the place where there's models, sounds, and static meshes all coming together to do a thing. I have my notebook out. Awesome. Well, we're going to make a blueprint. But first, I'm going to unlight this. And you guys can do this too, actually. What I'm going to do, away from all these lights, is I'm going to open up my modeling mode here. And I'm going to go into the cube grid with nothing selected. And I'm going to build some walls like this. I'm even going to put a roof on it. And then I'm going to just grab like this area here and make a door for us to enter with. And then I'll just double click or double check that we can fit through the door, because I've made many of these and been like, well, can't fit. As you can see. So we will go ahead and make that just slightly bigger. I did not know that was a thing. You just made my day. I don't know. Oh, the cube grid? Dude, Pixel. Cube grid, literally. So good. But yeah, now I should be able to fit in my house. You guys can do this too. Okay, perfect. Also, this is another problem with not casting shadows. Again, I'm not trying to like say Pixel's idea is bad. It's a very good idea, and you should consider it when you're developing your lighting. But something else to consider is that you can see that I can see it inside my house because it's not casting shadows. So it doesn't care that the wall is there, for example. But yeah. Anyway, so it's too dark. We go into the house, we can't see. It's fucking dark in here. Okay, I might be Dark Slayer, but that's fucking dark. So let's make a lighting system. Is 100% best used with small? Yes, absolutely. 100% agree. All right. So what we're going to do, we're going to hit Control Space. We're going to open up that content browser. I'm going to get rid of my static mesh filter. And what we're going to do is we are going to go into the blueprints folder that we created. And then we're going to create another folder. And we're going to call this Actors. And don't worry. Actually, I'll just go ahead and explain it. An actor is basically anything in your world that has code attached to it. That's not 100% true, but it's the rule more than it's the exception, okay? So for example, this is not an actor, this right here, because there's no code. It's just a static mesh. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna open up our actors, and we're gonna right click, and we're gonna go up here to the blueprint class. Now, you can see one of these things says actor. So we're gonna go ahead and click on that. Now back to naming conventions, because we're creating a new file. So as I said, the Unreal naming convention is to state the type of thing it is, underscore, and then its name. Well, blueprint is shorthand, so it's gonna be BP underscore light, because we need to make a light for the house we just made. Let's go ahead and now double click it and open it up. Ugh, sorry, excuse me. I'm gonna drink water. Okay, so now that we're inside the blueprint, this is actually pretty similar to the other viewport, in one that we can navigate it exactly the same way. Two, the details panel is right there on the right hand side for us. But the left side, a little different. So what's going on over there? Well, at the top left, you can see we have our components. Basically, a component is every single thing that makes up a blueprint. So, for example, because we want to make a light, within our blueprint, under the components, we're going to click Add. And as you can see right here at the top, there's Point Light. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Point Light. And just like the world outside of our blueprint, you can see, if you remember what this is called, you can see the attenuation radius. On the right hand side, you can see its intensity, you can see its color. Literally, there's cast shadows there, literally just like the ones in the actual world. Hey, what's going on, Felda? We are doing Unreal Engine 5 stuff today. Did you hit level cap in WoW? But anyway, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna hit save, and then you have to do an extra thing with blueprints. So anytime you're doing any type of programming, which is what a blueprint is, it's programming, we're just doing a visual scripting version of it. You also have to compile. Basically, when you compile something, the computer goes, can I read this? Does it make sense? Or am I just gonna get errors? So you're gonna hit save, and then you're gonna hit this compile button. We haven't done anything except add a light. There should be no issues. You'll get a check mark. It says, hey, I can read this and it makes sense. We're good to go. And we're gonna go back to the world for a moment. We're gonna turn lights on. If your lights are off, turn them on. Okay. We're gonna hit Control Space, and we're gonna drag this blueprint we just created into the world. And notice we have a point light. This is now just a fancy point light. Why is it a fancy point light? Because that's all it is, remember? That's the only component we added. We added a point light. There it is. Your first blueprint. But we wanted to do stuff, right? We put it in a blueprint because we wanted to do stuff. We don't want it to just be a light. We wanted to do stuff and we wanted to do thing, okay? So go back into your blueprint. And the first thing we're gonna do is we want this thing to only turn on if we're within proximity of it. If we're close to it, turn on. If we're not close to it, do not turn on, okay? So, what we're gonna do is first, we wanna click on the point light here in the components, and on the right-hand side in the details, you'll see a little bit down here under rendering, or you can just type in visible. You'll see visible. You're gonna uncheck it, okay? And then hit save and compile. Go back to your world, and now it's turned off. So when you take something and you just not make it visible, that's literally what you're doing. You're saying this isn't visible. And look, it's not. It's gone. Okay? Someone ate the light. It's gone now. So, by default, the light is off. But we need it to turn on if we're close. So we have to think to ourselves, how do we know if the player is close? Well, what if we had an invisible box, in theory, that if the player entered, we could just tell the light, hey, they've entered the box, so turn on. And if they exit the box, it'll go, oh, hey, whoa, they've exited the box, turn off, okay? Now you might be wondering why that's such a specific example. It's because that's what we're gonna do. And I didn't know another way to do it. So what we're gonna do is, first and foremost, whenever you're adding components to a blueprint, you have to be careful about the child or the parent-to-child relationships that you're creating. Don't ask me to explain that, because as a new person, you don't care. You will care eventually, but don't worry about it right now. All it means to you is that it's more right. The more right it is, the more of a child it is, and you don't want that, okay? So click on your default scene route, and now we're gonna add a component, okay? And we're gonna just type in the word box, right? Because we're like, hey, what if there was a box? Well, funnily enough, boom, box collision. Pretty small though, but maybe we can fix that. I'm going to name this box, because remember, Unreal naming convention, and I'm gonna hammer it in your head over and over again. What it is, underscore, then its name. Box, underscore, player, I don't know, actually, what do we name this? Box proximity, right? There you go. It's a box, it's checking proximity. Perfect. We're gonna hit save and compile. Do this frequently. Now, we're gonna do the part that's scary, okay? The code, the blueprints, the visual scripting. Up here above your viewport, you're gonna click on the event graph. Don't you worry, it's not that scary. Go ahead and grab all of this by just clicking and dragging and then just hit delete, okay? You're gonna do that almost every time you make one of these. They're there to save time because they're frequently used. So maybe whenever you know more about what you're doing, you can just use the ones that are there, but just delete them, okay? They're visual clutter for new people, okay? Delete those things, get them out of there. So to navigate the viewport, I'm just gonna hold right click. I don't have to use WASD, I just drag. Look at that, we drag in the viewport around. Woo, woo, woo. You can scroll, you'll zoom in and out. Pretty simple stuff. But in order to do things on the event graph, the most important key that you're gonna get used to is right clicking. So when you right click, you're gonna get this big all actions for this blueprint, and then we got this check mark and it says context sensitive and a search box. Holy hell, what the fuck is going on, right? What the hell? So before we dive into that, let's talk about what needs to happen for code to fire. Because we can code for days, but it doesn't mean it's going to fire. It's not going to run unless we tell it to, or the engine tells it to. So those are what is known as events. Okay? The most common basic event is called event begin play. We're not actually going to use it, but I still want to show you it to teach you how this works. There's two ways to get event begin play. You can either right click and type it in. So right click and then type in event begin play. Press enter. There it is. Or you can hold P, which is my way of doing it, and then just left click and you will get an event begin play. It's much faster, much smoother. So there's things to note about event begin play. The biggest one is it's red. Red means that this is an event. This is something that happens. The game triggered it, okay? So, all of your code, this is something I didn't understand for a long time when I was brand new. All of your code must start with an event. If that event doesn't happen, code doesn't happen. Okay? Which means it has to start with red. What happened to cause the code to fire? That's what you got to be asking yourself. Okay? That probably sounds confusing, but I promise you this gets simpler the more you do it. It's not that bad. So what do we want? We want, if the player is within the box, we want code to fire that turns the light on. If they exit that box, we want code to fire that turns that light off. That's me handling. Jesus Christ, Pixel. Luckily, there's some really simple coding we can do here, or visual scripting, to make that happen. See our box up here? If we right click on it, notice one of those words that's in there. Well, it's technically two words, but add event. Remember what I said? For your code to fire, you need an event. You need something that says, hey. How do I open the event graph again? So in the blueprint, you'll see up here there's some tabs. You have the viewport. You have the construction script, which we're not talking about yet. And then you have the event graph. But if we right click the box proximity and go to add event, here's a bunch of events that can happen based on box proximity. We have component hit, begin overlap, end overlap, wake, sleep, and a whole bunch of other stuff. But begin and end overlap. That sounds like something we could use, right? I mean, if the player is overlapping the box, that means they're in it. If they're not overlapping the box, they're not in it. Okay, let's add on component begin overlap. And look, it's red. We have an event. The event has been called. The blueprint now goes, hey, whoa, we had an event begin on overlap. Run that code that's connected to that box. Okay? Something happened. That's awesome. That's a good thing. Okay? So let's look at our event. What's all this information? What are all these pins? This top one, this is the execute pin. Essentially, all of your code that you want to run goes through this white line, okay? It goes, it follows the white line, and it hits every single node, and it does a thing based on what this white line is connected to. It's essentially telling the engine what code you want to fire because the event happened. Okay? And then we just have a bunch of other information that we can get out of this. We can get, hey, what component was overlapped? What actor was it? What component was there, right? All this is just additional information. So for right now, the only one we care about is other actor. You might be wondering why. Well, when we overlap the box, we only want it to go turn on if it's us, right? Because if it's just some random object in our game, well, we don't really, like if we had a soap bottle, like let's say we're playing Phasmophobia and the ghost throws a soap bottle. We don't want the light to turn on, right? So we only want it to go off if it's us. And because we have access to that information, like what the other actor is, we can essentially do what Pixel said, is kind of apply a filter. Hey, make sure it's this thing or don't run the code, okay? How do we do that? So, something that, hold on, sorry. Okay, sorry. Something that you have to learn how to do, and you'll also be yelled at for doing it, is something called casting, okay? So for now, let's put it on the screen and then I'll explain it. So what we're gonna do is we're going to drag out from our arrow, because this is what we want the thing to do, right? It's gonna follow the white line, drag out, and we want it to cast to first person. Now, I can stop typing. We want it to cast to BP first person character. I'm gonna click it. It's gonna add the node, and let me explain why. Let me hit Control Space. Sorry. Okay. And we're gonna go back to content, or you guys don't need to do this. And I'm gonna go into first person, and we're gonna go to blueprints, and look, BP first person character. This is the character that we are in game. That's the blueprint for the player character, okay? So, we are casting to the BP first person character. What is a cast? A cast compares two objects, okay? It verifies that something is true, okay? So, the other actor is going to be plugged into object, okay? It's going to say, hey, is this object, which is, if we follow the line, the other actor, is it the first person character? Right? It's going to say, hey, hold on. Is that what's happening? Then, out the other side, we can run some more code if it is. If it's not, we can run some code. Right? So like, let's say if it's true, we do this. If it's not, we do this. Okay? And then, because we casted, we actually have access to all of its events, but we're not going to get into that yet. We're not going to talk about BPs interacting yet. That's a whole nother can of worms. We'll get to that though. Not tonight, but soon. Also, don't worry, guys. We're almost done with the itinerary. We're not going to go for too much longer. I know some of you are probably wondering how long the stream is going to be. Don't worry. We're nearing the end. Hang in there. You're all troopers for learning what you've learned so far. Okay? So, we've casted to the first person character. It verified, hey, yeah, that's them. What do you want me to do? Right? So, we want to pull out of the yes part here, which is the top. Because if it's not, don't do anything, right? If it's not anything, if it's not them, then don't do anything. Okay. So, we're actually going to get the point light, and believe it or not, we can literally just drag it onto the event graph, and now we have a reference to the point light, okay? And all of its details. Notice that I'm using the word details. Do you remember within the details panel for the point light, we had visibility? I do too. So, if we pull out of the point light and we start typing in set visibility, wait a minute. So if it is the first person character, I want you to set the visibility to true. Save and compile. Okay. Let's see if it works. Oh, you know what? It's not. Listen, we're not there yet, because I forgot. We gotta do one more thing. If you remember, the box is still really small. And I didn't change it yet intentionally, okay? Small box brains, that's right. Let's go ahead and unlight this so we can actually see what we're doing here. We're gonna click on our BP light, make sure it's selected. Make sure you're not searching for anything in your details panel, otherwise it'll be empty, so make sure that's cleared. So you can actually see all of the components of the actor you have selected, or the blueprint you have selected. We're actually gonna click on the box proximity, and now we can change its details from in the world. You'll see that we have box extent and we have all these numbers. Well, I can start playing with these numbers, and you can see this one's changing the depths. So we can change the depth so it fits the house a little bit better. We can even move this over so it's a little bit more centered. Let's go ahead and make it wide. And then we'll also go ahead and make it a bit taller. Maybe bring this down a little bit. And also, I want to point out something. When I moved this, I want you to notice the blueprint isn't moving. Only the component is moving because I have the component selected, okay? So the reason I taught you to change the box size in the world instead of in the blueprint is because if I place another one of these down, check it out. If I place another one of these down, this is something that took me forever to learn how to do. Look. The box is small again, but it's still the same size on this one. You can make a light system that's proximity that is completely dynamic based on the room it's in, as long as you start changing the variables in the world instead of in the blueprint. This is one example of why variables are your best friend, and we'll talk about more variable stuff here soon, but I hope that makes sense. I hope you're following along. I hope that if I just lost somebody, let me know. But let's go back to lit, and now our box is of appropriate size. So let's go ahead and hit play. Now, remember, what's the code doing? It's saying, hey, something has hit the box. Something has overlapped the box, okay? Oh my God, look, it's the first person character. Oh wait, I have more to do. I need to turn the light on. You just made your first proximity light. But we're not completely done, because if you notice, it stays on. We didn't code it to do anything else. It's on. It did what we told it to do. So let's tell it to turn it off. Let's go back into our BP light. And just like whenever we got this event, we're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna right click on box proximity. We're gonna add event. And now we're gonna do on component end overlap. And here's the great part. We can just grab these last 3 nodes, or 2 nodes in a reference, and we can just hit Control C, Control V, plug these in. And instead of new visibility being on, make it off. Save and compile. Hey, something just stopped overlapping me. Was it the player? Oh, it was. Okay, turn the visibility off. Well, all right, play. Turn the visibility on. Turn the visibility off. Turn the visibility on. Turn the visibility off. And you've created your first proximity lights. So how much do you pay the ghost to turn the lights on? It depends on if they're interns. But, you know, that's cool and all, right? Actually, you know what? I was about to get ahead of myself. I was about to not teach you guys one of the most important fucking things that you can do. And that's how to comment. And you better get used to it because you're gonna do it, okay? You have no reference as to why it's so important because you haven't made a big project yet. Do it. Do it. Okay? What you're gonna do is you're gonna grab this top set of code. You're gonna grab it all and you're gonna press C. Okay? And what you're going to do is you're going to start typing out what this does, okay? Literally kind of how I've been vocalizing it. When a component begins overlapping the box, we'll check if it's the first person character. If it is, we'll set the visibility to true. That was weird. I swear I heard a knock at the window. That's creepy as fuck. I don't think I did. I think it was just like the refrigerator or something, but P.S. When you want to edit code that was in the comment, just delete the comment until you're finished. I always just make it extra big. That's how I personally go about it. But yeah, so that's that comment. Now we're going to comment the bottom one. When a component ends overlap, we'll check if it's the first person character. If it is, we'll set the visibility to false. Okay? It was the ghost. Okay. Now, we're not done yet. This is 2 comments, right? We're gonna grab it all now. Make another comment. Turn light on and off. Okay? So, you want layered comments like this. In fact, let me go... trying to think of a good example. You know what? Here, I'll show you a good example of why you want layered comments, okay? Because I think it's relevant to the education of why this is so important. I'm going to... like, this is going to stay open, don't worry, but I'm also going to open up... where is it? Where is it? Why is it not here? Whatever, I'll just open up this. This'll work. So I'm going to show you guys one of my larger blueprints, because I want to really emphasize why it's so important to get used to commenting in layers like this. One, because when you're new and you're learning, it's good to be able to go back and go, that's what I was doing. That makes sense, right? But also, let me show you what my options menu looks like, okay? Because of how I have things commented and organized, I can quickly navigate to the things I need to get to, okay? If I didn't have this set up in a way that is comments within comments and color coordinated, I would not be able to find anything. Going back and editing this would be an absolute nightmare. But because we have it, look, what's this big set here? This is load settings and set buttons. Okay, we're setting the buttons. What's this top one? Oh, this is the window button. Okay, so blah, 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 blah. I hope you're realizing, and yeah, you did get flipped off here, storyteller. But I hope you guys are realizing why comments are so important. Okay? Going back and doing that stuff without comments, nightmare. So just set yourself up for success, okay? Set yourself up for success. Start early, organize quickly, okay? Anyway, save and compile. So let's look at our itinerary. You'll see that there's a couple things we need to look at here. You're taking... for sure, Pixel, for sure. The proximity thing, it's okay. It's a lot better when there's like a switch though, right? The player can actually go up and hit a button and then they can turn it on and off. Feels more realistic. Plus, you know, the switch, maybe we can make multiple lights turn on, not just one. that kind of thing. So what we're going to do is we're going to now create a separate blueprint for the switch. A lot of new people would go, well, why wouldn't you just put the switch and the light in the same blueprint? There's a reason for that. Well, the biggest reason, actually, never mind. I'm just going to show you. Why would I tell you when I can show you, okay? For now, BP light, we're good, okay? I wouldn't close it because we're going to come back to it, but we're good. What we're going to do now is we're going to go into the content browser, and now we're going to create a new blueprint. It's going to be an actor, just like the light was, and we're going to do BP underscore light switch. Okay, we're going to open it up. Now, for a switch, we need some kind of visual, right? Because obviously with the light, yeah, it'd be kind of nice if there was a lamp or a light bulb, but at the end of the day, we mostly want the light. We don't really care about the static mesh, which is why I didn't add one. But for a switch, how can we use it if we don't know it's there? So under the components, make sure you have your default scene route selected. Remember to get into the habit of that and click add. And what we're going to do is we're going to add a static, just type in the word static and you'll see static mesh. We're going to click on that. So the naming convention for static mesh, I just like to do SM and then underscore, and then I'm going to name it light switch. So now I have SM underscore light switch, which is a static mesh. But of course there's nothing there because right now the static mesh it's empty. There's nothing in it. So at this point, you guys should be ready to do this. It's in the details panel, right? And look, there's a section here called static mesh. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna open that up. And I don't know actually if there's a switch by default in the Unreal Engine. Let's type in the word switch and see. There's not. There's not. So what I'm gonna do is, I don't know, isn't there a plant? There's not. What is there? Let's just scroll through. Cause I just wanna use default stuff so that way we don't have to do anything crazy. Posture check, good call. I'm pretty close to correct, but chair, you know what? Chair. True, we're gonna do chair. So go ahead and select chair, and this is gonna be our switch. Our switch for the light, okay? So we now have our chair switch. And we're gonna hit save and compile. This is where things are gonna get interesting. What did we learn about blueprints, specifically the coding? We learned that we need an event to happen. Well, let's think about this in our head. What's the event? Well, the event would be if the player is at the switch and they hit the button, the light comes on. So the event would be the button, right? The player hit E, the event happened. Okay. Let's make something happen. So, how do we do that though? Well, there's a couple ways to do it, but the most appropriate way to go about it is I would head into your project settings. Okay? Now, if yours isn't open, remember you can go up here, click on edit, and go to project settings. If you're still searching up here, by the way, just go ahead and hit the little X so it's cleared out. All right, lady, what the fuck is wrong with me? Later storyteller, thanks for hanging out, man. Appreciate the support. But all right, now that we're in the project settings, on the left-hand side, we're gonna go down to the input, and we're given this menu here. But at the top, you'll see we have action mappings and we have access mappings. Axis mappings are things like WASD, joysticks, arrow keys, things like that. Whereas action mappings are buttons, basically. So we're gonna hit plus, okay? And notice nothing happened. But there's a caret here now. So we're gonna open up the caret, and you'll see we have new action mapping 0. I'm going to grab all that, I'm gonna delete it, and I'm gonna type in the word player interact, okay? I named it player interact. Okay, so I named it player interact, and now we need to set it to a button, okay? So you can hit this and go through all these, or what I like to do is just click on the keyboard, and then I can just press the button that I want. So for me, I'm gonna put it on E, And now we have player interact set to E. We can exit the project settings and go back to our BP light switch. Actually, how do I want to do this? Normally, okay. Normally I would do a line trace by channel to make sure the player is looking at the switch. But because this is beginner friendly, we're just gonna do a proximity to the chair, okay? Because line trace by channel is kind of complicated for a beginner. So we're just gonna do, if you're close enough to the chair and you press E, it'll act as our switch, okay? So we know how to check for proximity, right? In order to do that, we need to go over to our components. I'm gonna click on my default scene root and we're gonna add. I'm gonna type in the word box and we have our box collision. In this case, by the way, I am gonna, which this is side tangent box underscore range test. In this case, I am gonna go ahead and set the size of this in the blueprint. I can still change it outside the blueprint if I need to, but this is a little bit less, you know, dynamic. It doesn't need to be that crazy. I'm gonna set it to like 300. Just set all these to like 300. Yeah, it's pretty large. I'm gonna change it to 150. There we go. We'll do like 150. And then I'm gonna bring up the box range test to be about floor level. Like that. It doesn't have to be perfect. And then we're gonna hit compile and save. And then, now we need to go over to our event graph. Okay. We're gonna delete all this. Remember, eventually you'll know how to use those and they're a little bit of a time saver, but when you're new, get rid of them. What we're gonna do now is we are going to, oh God, sorry. I'm like, so one last diversion, guys. Listen, I've been going for 2 hours and 15 minutes. Give me a small break here. My Adderall is wearing off, so my ADHD is taking over, and it's making it very difficult to concentrate. Apologies. I hope you guys are enjoying and learning, and I hope I'm not too chaotic and things are moving forward well enough. Let me ingest some more caffeine and try to make it through the rest of this, because my ADHD is absolutely starting to take over. Awesome. Glad to hear it, Lucas. Okay. So, just like the light, remember how we right-clicked on the box and we hit add event? Because remember, with the blueprint, we need an event. So we're going to go to add event and we're going to go to on component, begin overlap. Out of the other actor. So this is, by the way, this is just a quicker way to connect these nodes. You can obviously just pull out of the arrow and be like, cast to, that's fine. But you can also do it from actor and then watch what happens. Cast to first person character. It just auto connects it all. It just saves you a step. That's the only difference. Anyway, something overlapped me. Is it the first person character? If yes, okay. We are actually going to create a variable, okay? So there's this old thing that people used to do where you would enable input, and essentially at that point you would say, okay, well, this is receiving input, and they pressed E or whatever we set it to, and then that blueprint would take care of the work. It was weird and complicated. So, oh God, sorry, my ADHD is killing me. It just hit me like a truck, guys. I'm so sorry. Get a Zen out. Okay. We're going to do the enable input thing. I'm losing my mind right now. Okay. Is it the first person character? Yes. We're going to pull out. We're going to type in enable input. Okay. So, what it's going to do is once we're overlapping it, it's going to enable the input. What input am I talking about? Specifically about the player's input. But how do we tell it? I'm specifically talking about the player's input. Well, there's a player controller thing here. A player controller is essentially Unreal Engine's way of saying, this is everything about how someone interacts with our game, okay? So if you pull out of the player controller, you're gonna think this is the dumbest thing ever. You're not gonna understand this step yet, and that's fine. But drag out of player controller and just simply type in get player controller, okay? Now, why is that a step? It doesn't make sense, right? Why would I care about if it wants a player controller, why can't I just type in get player controller? Like, it doesn't, why? So the reason for that is because the player index. Let's say you're in a multiplayer game and you want this person, you know, the person that's overlapping this, you want this person to have to be in the area, but his or her friend has to then do the input. That's like a niche case, you know, specific example, but that's what's going on here, okay? So the player's close enough. Let's enable their input, okay? So, do you remember whenever we set up the button? Remember we set it to E? If we go to project settings, you'll see that it's called player interact or whatever you named yours. That's an event now. If I right click and I type in player interact, look, that's an event now. I can click it, look, it's an event. Do you know why that's exciting? That's exciting because you just made your own button. And now you can make code run when that button gets pushed. That's so cool. But we do have a weird issue. Because if you think about it, you're like, well, they hit the button, we need the light to turn on and off. But we're in a different blueprint. We don't have access to the point light. So what do we do? It's a good question. We're going to talk about variables for a second, okay? A variable is just like what you learned in math. X, Y, Z, okay? They're these random letters that could be anything, right? X, who knows what X is? You could literally put anything in it. It's a variable. Well, when it comes to programming, there are different types of variables. You have things like a Boolean. That's a fancy word for saying it's either true or false. Okay, that's a variable. You have integers, so whole numbers. Wait, I think integer is the whole number. And yeah, and then you have floats. That's a fancy way of saying a number, but could also be a decimal. However, what if I told you our blueprints can be variables? Now that might sound confusing. What is this? Give me just a moment, because I just got an emergency alert about a tornado. We always do in this area. It doesn't mean anything necessarily, but I should probably go check that out. I'll be right back.